Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Johnny. I've got a really exciting interview today with one of my oldest friends in the business, Jade Teta. He's probably my go-to exercise guy in the country. One of, I'd say, a handful of maybe three people that I just consider to be the final word when it comes to burning fat, when it comes to effective exercise. He's a naturopathic physician. He's a licensed acupuncturist. He runs a clinic in North Carolina. He's written a wonderful book called Metabolic Effect, and he's here today to talk to us about interval training, about the most effective way to burn fat, about his new program, and everything else we can get out of him in 15 minutes. So, Jade, welcome to the interview, and thanks for spending this time with me.
Johnny, it's always an honor to hang out with someone of your caliber. I love you to death, and it's just a pleasure to be here.
You're very kind. Thank you. So let's talk. We've had 100 offline conversations about this subject. What's the most effective way to exercise? I know both of us kind of came up in the days when you put people on the treadmill for an hour and, and it was all aerobic exercise and low-fat diets.
Yeah.
Obviously, things have changed a lot. We're hearing more and more about burst training, about interval training, about high-intensity training. Tell us what the latest science says about this. I know that you've created an amazing program that makes use of this, and I think you only have to work out 3 times a week, and people love that in 15 minutes, and we're going to talk about that. But give us the overview of what does the science say these days about the most effective, the smartest way to exercise?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one of the reasons why you and I, Johnny, back in the day were talking about, aerobic exercise and staying in the aerobic zone is because back then we didn't really have a clear understanding of metabolism. We thought that metabolism worked like a calculator. So we were working in the calories in, calories out model. Now, metabolism has certainly now been updated, and we start to understand how hormones impact not just calories burned during exercise, but calories burned with food. And what we now understand is that the metabolism does not work like a calculator or even a chemistry set, but more like a seesaw or thermostat. In other words, when you exercise, you are causing changes in your metabolism that will fight back against you if it's overdone. For instance, if you exercise for too long, too hard, or too frequently, you can oftentimes throw your metabolism out of balance, which leads to increased hunger, unpredictable energy changes, increased cravings, and then you undo everything you work so hard to do in the workout itself. So this new understanding is working with the way the metabolism actually works. And so to get to your question, what's the best way to exercise? It's to exercise in a way that does not cause these negative metabolic changes, so we can burn fat during the workout, get an afterburn after the workout, and not create these negative changes in hunger, energy, and cravings. That is the smart approach. So more is not better. Better is better. Smarter is better.
Smarter is better.
Now understand.
It's so interesting because I think back so often to the mistakes I made in the early 90s with clients. I want to apologize to every client I did with this. But I had people who would come in and they were just, these women that were just fanatic on the treadmill, and they would work out like they do these long, exhausting running workouts, and he still had this little pooch, and they couldn't lose fat, and they weren't gaining muscle. And I now know that this was because of elevated cortisol, but I didn't even hear of cortisol when I started as a trainer.
Right.
And these stress hormones really do. They break down muscle, which ultimately slows your metabolic rate, and they have so many negative side effects. You mentioned hunger. It was an entire story on the cover of Time magazine not too long ago about exercise actually making you fatter. Now, it was a little bit of hyperbole. It doesn't really make you fatter, but that additional hunger and cravings that sometimes happens afterwards can actually offset all the good in terms of weight loss or fat loss that you just did in the workout. You want to address how we can get around these problems and how the smarter workout looks these days?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Longer workouts have been shown to change stress hormones in a negative way. In other words, the longer you exercise, what happens is stress hormones rise uncontrolled and relative to other hormones like human growth hormone and testosterone. So the one thing we know, first rule of thumb, is you do not want to go too long, because when you exercise for too long, just like you were saying, Johnny, cortisol, adrenaline, some of these negative stress hormones get out of control. And that is what changes sort of our hunger, makes us more hungry. That's what makes us crave more palatable, calorie-rich foods. And so the smarter approach is either to go very, very low intensity, like walking, and I'm not talking power walking, but I'm talking like leisurely walking. If you're going to go for a long period of time, it's got to be low intensity. That seems to not have any negative effects on hunger, energy, and cravings. In fact, that is the only type of exercise that really lowers these stress hormones. So it's very restorative. So that's one smart way to do it.
But not very good for weight loss. Great for health, not necessarily.
Absolutely.
And you and I have talked about the difference between exercising for fitness versus exercising for fat loss. I'd love you to address that, and maybe we can ease into how you've solved this problem in your program.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to finish that thought, the other smart exercise approach is shorter duration, higher intensity. What that does is that raises stress hormones too, but raises them with human growth hormone and testosterone and other hormones that turn those stress hormones to your advantage. Plus, it has an appetite suppressing effect in the short run, giving you an opportunity to eat the right things before you get this hunger effect. Now, to answer your other question, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because many people think any exercise is the same as any other exercise. The truth is, you really want to think about there's healthy exercise, right? Like jogging for your heart can certainly be healthy, or walking for your heart. As long as it's not overdone, it can be healthy. There's fat burning exercise that when you do it, it creates favorable effects during the workout that burn fat, after the workout that burn fat, and favorable changes to hunger, energy, and cravings that make you consume less. And then there's just fun exercise, stuff like Zumba and dancing classes and things like that. But the fun exercise and the healthy exercise is not necessarily what's going to get your body tight and toned and burn fat. And we need to make that distinction. So I think you bringing that up is absolutely critical because people miss that point.
Yeah, and we're never saying don't walk. Walk has probably the best research behind it in terms of lowering the risk for depression and cancer and obesity and diabetes. What it doesn't do is get fat off your body. So
Yes.
Tell us, you've come up with a program that is very appealing to people, obviously, because it's crushing everywhere. And I don't think I'm allowed to talk about the fact that probably everybody who's watching this today will be seeing this on television within a year, but you didn't hear it from me. But your program takes advantage of our natural inclination to want to do less and get more results with less effort.
Yep.
I believe, and I'd love you to flesh this out, it's only 3 times a week and it's only 15 minutes a time. Talk to us about how you can accomplish what most of the people listening to this would like to accomplish, which is a tighter body, leaner body, less body fat, more muscle, more energy in just 15 minutes 3 times a week.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right, Johnny? It really does sound crazy from where all of us, including you and I, have come from in exercise science. But now what we know is every single time you exercise, and if you do it correctly, it's sort of like dropping a stone in a pond. Long after that stone goes to the bottom of that lake, you got all these ripples on top of the water. That's what we're doing in 15 minutes. And what we now know within research is that there's 4 parameters that if you can achieve in your workout, you get a metabolic afterburn long after. So those are breathless, burning, heavy, and heat. What I call the B's and the H's, 2 B's and 2 H's, breathless, burning, heavy, and heat. And when you combine those factors together in a short, intense workout, what we now know is they elicit this chemical response, this hormonal soup that is so beneficial that allows you to burn maximum calories in the workout for 15 minutes, but then turns that 15-minute workout into really a 2-day workout while you're sitting at home on the couch. One of the things that it does too is that metabolic seesaw or thermostat. We don't do too much, we don't go for too long, and we get just the right intensity so we don't throw that out of balance so you're not craving cupcakes later because you went for a long jog. That's why we can get away with 15 minutes 3 times per week and have this beautiful effect, because you're really extending that 15 minutes into several days until you do the next workout.
I had a hint of this kind of approach even back in the day in the 90s. There was a trainer at Equinox, I'll never forget, Rich Romanes, and everybody was doing these these split routines and an hour and a half on tries and buys and all this stuff. He'd come in and do these short things, and I said, how can you accomplish anything? He said, let me give you a tricep routine. If you can last longer than 5 minutes, I'll buy you dinner. 4.5 minutes into that, I could not move my trail.
Yeah.
So I know that if you do stuff right, you can be very effective in a very short time.
Yeah, it's all about volume. What people don't understand is if we can maximize volume in minimal time and make the workout very dense, we're accomplishing the same amount of work in 15 minutes that it takes most people an hour to do. And you experienced that way back then. All we're doing is taking that same technology and using new ways of doing exercise, pulsing and holding and squeezing and what we call tension reps and all these techniques that maximize the volume and cram it into a very limited amount of space. And that's how we get the effect.
And the name of your program is Metabolic Aftershock. It's a great name because it really kind of summarizes the sense of what we're talking about, which is that a lot of the workout is done after you leave the gym. Is that correct?
Right. That's right.
That's really where you get that afterburn and that the calorie burn, the fat burn, all the things that we're looking for without the additional cravings and hunger that can sometimes derail the whole purpose of the exercise in the first place.
Yeah, when you think about an earthquake, right, you get this sort of earth disturbance. Well, in this particular program, we're creating a metabolic disturbance. And when you do that, you have to repair, you have to recover, and then you have to have adaptation effects in the body. And that can use a tremendous amount of energy over the next couple of days because the body's literally like, whoa, what just happened? I better do something to recover, repair, and make myself stronger next time. And that requires an awful lot of energy. And something about short, intense workouts tell the body to make most of that energy come from fat stores. And so that's what we're taking advantage of.
Right. Now, you can get Jade's program and more information about it by clicking the link below. But Jade, just give us a quick overview of the bullet points. How long does the program last? What kind of results will people see with it? What kind of results have you been getting with it? I kind of know the answer to this because I know what's happened since you premiered this program and how enormous it's gotten and how enormous it's about to get. But give us some of the highlights of what people can expect with Metabolic Aftershock.
Well, it's a 9-week program, and it's broken into 3 phases. So the first 3 weeks are sort of every workout, by the way, gives you the B's and the H's, breathless, burning, heavy, and heat. But the first 3 weeks and the first 3 workouts really are more about the heavy component. It's sort of like taking your metabolism to training camp. You know, when professionals get ready for their season, they go to spring training. That first 3 weeks, we are training the metabolism to get ready for what's to come. In phase 2, we move into, again, we're getting the B's and the H's because they create that aftershock effect, but we're focusing now more on the burning effect. And burning, a lot of people used to think that was associated with lactic acid, and it is, but it's not lactic acid that's causing that effect. In fact, lactic acid is what is creating the human growth hormone response. And so in phase 2, we focus on this burning effect to get this human growth hormone response to really amplify fat burning. And then in the third phase, the last phase, we really focus again on the B's and the H's, breathless, burning, heavy, and heat, but really amplify the breathless effect, which is associated with our fat burning catecholamines. So by the end of this workout, this end of this 9 weeks, you are burning fat at a frantic rate, but it's designed to go in sequence. So 9 weeks is really all it takes. Now, what a lot of people will want to do, right, is they'll think, oh, well, if 3 times per week at 15 minutes is enough, maybe I should do more. And that's exactly the wrong approach because you do not want to tip that metabolic seesaw out of balance and get these hunger, energy, and craving responses. So all we essentially do is say, follow this for 9 weeks. Trust us. Jonny has this experience. I have this experience. Some people have to take a leap of faith. And what happens is they literally are blown away. And I'll be honest with you, I actually am a little bit blown away, as you and I have talked about, Jonny, at the effects that people are getting. Because even I sometimes fall back into the old more is better mentality. And I just can't believe that some people are doing this workout and getting tremendous results. So you might say, Jade, what are the results that you're seeing? And we're seeing, 15 to 30 pound weight losses on some people in 9 weeks, which you and I know is virtually impossible in that amount of time period. So it's almost unbelievable in a sense. Typical results are 5 to 10 pounds. And what's happening is, remember, weight loss and fat loss are 2 different things. You can be losing weight, but if you're losing muscle, that's not what we want. What this program is doing is maintaining muscle. And in some of the beginners who are doing this program, they're actually gaining muscle and losing fat, which we know is very difficult to do.
Very difficult to do, and it's important for people to make that distinction that you just made between fat loss and weight loss, because some people might be thinking, some people who watch The Biggest Loser, they go 5-10 pounds, that's nothing. It's a lot, because what's really happening here is you're losing body fat and gaining some muscle, which if you just look at the scale, that's not going to be reflected. But that 10 pounds down in the scale actually probably represents 15 pounds of body fat loss, 5 pounds of muscle gain. I'm making those figures up, but your body composition is quite different and you look a lot different. And that wouldn't necessarily be reflected if you just think, oh, I only lost 10 pounds. No, you actually changed your body shape.
Yeah. And to add to that, I know you and I, Johnny, would say for a lot of people, when I hear those kind of numbers, even for you and I, we're just kind of like, okay, a lot of that is water, but I like to see people with a little less weight loss and, more in the 5 to 8 pound range because of what you're saying, which means they are really, really transforming their body, gaining muscle, losing fat. And those people typically look the best. So I really like the sort of slow and steady approach, even though some of the numbers in this program really get people's eyebrows raised. Really what we want is we want that ability to build muscle and burn fat at the same time in the least amount of time possible. Efficient exercise. I mean, here's the thing. Why would you exercise like crazy when you can get the results in a third of the time? It's unbelievable. I oftentimes talk to people, how, I don't know if you get this, but back in the day, I used to hear all the time, people are like, all I need is 4 hours of sleep. But today people are wearing, and I'm just like, no wonder you look 10 years older than you actually are. Exactly. But nowadays we're wearing on our sleeves how much exercise we do. Oh, I exercise 3-4 hours, a day and things like that. To me, that is just insane. Why would you do that when you can have so many other things that you should be focusing on? This program allows you to get the most bang for your buck and focus on all the other stuff you love.
It's not even, it's not even like, why would you put 3 or 4 hours in? I don't even think you get the same results with 3 or 4 hours. I think that you actually work against the results that you're trying to get. So it's not that 15 minutes is, a shortcut to 4 hours. It's actually a better and smarter approach to exercise. And I think that's very important that people understand that.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And it's a complete mind shift.
It is. But look, we had a complete mind shift on carbohydrates and low-fat diets and all the rest of it. And I think this is the cutting edge of exercise physiology. It's what the science is showing. I've been writing about it and seeing it for quite a number of years. I think your program really captures the essence of the smartest stuff that's going on in the science today and also in the clinics. This is what we're seeing results with. This is what works. So you can get more information about my friend Jade's Metabolic Aftershock program by just clicking the link below or going to the link below. And Jade, thank you so much for explaining this to us and giving this valuable information to people. I think even if they don't buy Metabolic Aftershock, which I highly recommend they do, just the knowledge that, maybe a shift in the way we think about workouts for more high intensity for shorter periods of time is going to produce results so much more effectively than these long, slow workouts that go nowhere. So thank you so much for sharing that. I hope people will check out the program, Metabolic Aftershock. Thanks for being with us, Jade.
Johnny, let me just say to everyone, I know everyone loves you to death, and obviously they're listening to you. I just want to tell you, so appreciate you and your work. Thank you for everything you do. You're just a genius, and I really, really am so grateful to be on with you. So I'm loving you, man.
I'm loving you. Take care.
Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye.